the teaching points. It might be kind of the overarching for the unit, or, yeah, usually it's overarching for the unit. Sometimes next to it, I put that day's teaching point. And then I also started putting next to it, writing like a 1, 2, 3 if there's multiple steps to a job. So that's all that is. It's posted every day right there.
We need bigger boards.
This is just another example of the thought bubble, thinking about other people versus just thinking about yourself. We've talked about this stopping and reading the room.
Okay, so we were talking about metacognition. Rochelle and I were planning for this, and I get a text from my son who's 17, and the rule in my house is that they cannot have game time during school week. And so he wanted to negotiate with me and talk about how the fact that he knows he has SATs on Saturday, I can do some while I'm here till 6 o'clock, and I don't see why it can't become a regular meeting playing games during the week. If I'm getting all my homework done and still pulling decent grades, and what I can say is that it would only happen, meaning playing games, on days that I don't have a lot of homework or no tests the following day. I think it gives me a better incentive to get my homework done to do the best I can, but in a timely manner. I just thought that kind of just. So this is me, and that is, that's a teenager. We all know whoever has teenagers, how that can be.
And the other last thing I want to say about metacognition is that we have to model that thinking for them, because we can't expect them. They're not going to master it until they're 30 years old. So they're in elementary school now. So we have to model that for them, some self-talk. Well, when I first looked at this book, do you know what I thought? And I thought, boy, I don't know anything about this topic. And really model, but I do know that, one thing, and I hope to find out more. I hope to learn, and just modeling self-talk about what you are and how you learn best. If they can, the best way for them to be a learner or a group member.
So the next one we're going to try and go really quickly. I know it's almost time to go. Emotional control. And we know we have a lot of these children in our school. The ability to manage emotions to achieve goals, complete tasks, or control and direct your own behavior. There's a lot of things that we're using already that are being incorporated in the classroom. Again, zones of regulation. This is another day tap. This is another workshop. This is a lot of programming, but the kids really do well with this to help regulate their self and understand their emotions and how they're feeling at the time, and then how to adjust that. Another thing that we use is Superflex. Superflex is awesome. He's a comic book. Superflex is a super flexible hero, and the guys around him are the Unthinkables. Time Robber, we've incorporated into that. They're the guys that invade your brain, and they make you do things that you don't really normally want to do, like be a space invader. This is a student in Gretchen's classroom who has picked up on this a lot, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, Gretchen, real quick. He can identify with many of them.
So this particular student is always down on himself about his behavior, and I'm such a bad kid, or I'm so stupid, and I'm this and that. And helping him have a comic book character that he can identify with as like the bad guys and invading his brain really allows him to say, it's not me. Somebody is trying to make me do this. I'm a good person, but this is they're getting in my brain. So we say, don't be a glass man. Don't be a rough brain. Don't do these things. What are you going to do now? Now that you know he's trying to get in there, how are you going to defeat him? That makes him feel like a superhero versus calling himself stupid.
Actually, there are some schools that are using this kind of in place of like a step with this.
Second
step.
I usually try to tie them together. So
Yeah. It's really powerful, and there's a lot of research behind it, actually, all the way up to adulthood. There's the woman that created this, Michelle Garcia Winner, is doing work with adults and using the James Bond theme to kind of help create characters, which is really cool. Problem thermometer, teaching kids the difference between understanding a big problem and a little problem, and how to react to that problem, and is your reaction equal to the problem size. So this is just another thing that we use to help with regulation.
A couple of students in Gretchen's room struggle with this, and I grabbed one out of the room and I said, was the problem in the classroom a big thing or a little thing? Well, it was a little thing. Well, how are you reacting? Big thing. And I said, well, think about that. How are we going to, and it was interesting. They can, as soon as, and they're starting to become more self-aware in Gretchen's room about, is it a big thing or a little thing?
I know you've heard of this one too, 5-point scale, very similar. Where are you on the scale? Kind of like the voice level meter, very, very similar to that. Nancy, raise your hand, Nancy. Nancy is using both of these with a student who was bubbling up. She brought her little things and she's going to explain as well.
I have a student that really has a hard time with the process of thinking and then having to do something that requires cognitive ability, even though he's so over-the-top smart. When it comes to, okay, it's time to plan out a writing for your pre or post writing, just talking about it the day before, saying tomorrow, and giving a whole, here's your spiel about what we're going to do tomorrow for writing, think of a topic, and just telling him what we're going to be doing tomorrow, already started hyperventilating, head down, starting to ready to crawl under the desk. I just bring the zone paper over, put it on the chair or on the desk in front of him and say, hey, where are you right now? And then I'll take the thermometer out at the same time and say, where is it? Where do you fall on the thermometer? And he'll point to it. So it's all nonverbal. Nothing has to do. What are our strategies to help us with this? And he, now that he's been practicing, he can just get himself into it. So as soon as, and when we did the writing prompt, I kept this on his desk and just used a sticky note for the time robber because he was just sitting there and going, what do I write? Putting the words time robber on the desk. He went, oh, and just started to get, his work done. So it really does work.
Another just as important, if not more important concept to learn about is time savers. So I'm going to be a time saver right now, and Danielle's passing out your exit slips. So while you listen to this wrap up, you can fill that out. I won't be offended if you break eye contact with me. So just to wrap up, the biggest takeaway points, I would say we really condensed what we presented today, and obviously it's a ton of information. But we've all been there when we've begun a project with a blank thought bubble, right? It stinks. It's just like so defeating. So encourage visualization. It's kind of backwards thinking. Start with done, and then work your way back. So we're accustomed to starting with checklists. That's great, but maybe, start with the end in mind. It's a little backwards thinking, but always start with what will done look like. Some apps are Doodle and PicStitch that you're just your own smartphone to use real pictures of students, their best work of them, those types of examples. So another big takeaway point for a lot of kids or people, there's two times really. There's now, and then there's not now. And you know which one matters. The now. Not now? Not worried about it. It's just right now. So strategies to help to teach that is using analog time, so that there's clocks where you can feel and see the sweep of time. So starting to incorporate that really starts to help, making time concrete, and even just sketching it along with them. Things like handheld timers. If you have a kid that's taking breaks, you can have him or her go ahead. I'm going to take a 3-minute break. These have the actual minutes on them. I think I have time for a 3-minute break or maybe a 5-minute one. I have my students decide. They're the time tellers, and they can turn it over, and when they see that it's done, then it's done. And they've physically done the motion and included the motor, nonverbal working memory and doing that. And this can be for younger kids, but particularly for older kids that have longer-term projects. When you see an accommodation that's like great long projects into smaller steps, well, what does that look like? It starts with starting with what is the goal and in mind, starting with that and then breaking it down and stretching it out of the week or the month that you have to complete that task. and sketching it out into parts. I have an example here of reference to the student, if you want to take a look at it, of what I'm talking about here. Another special factor is that it is a negative indicator of a development of executive functional skills when the kids are in poverty. So it's just another reason that you already know why it's important for particularly the kids that we do work with. And what you're already doing is so great. Thank you all for sharing everything that you are doing and that you're open to trying to do different things, like you said, and Danielle said our ideas were just to try and help you help the kids. So how can we get out what we know and future ideas you guys want to do our all day teaching them. So thank you guys.